skills better, and with the right kind of instructions, there is nothing to stop you, just like you do.
ಬ್ರೋ ನಾನು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಕೇಳಿ ಬ್ರೋ ಅದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಬಿಡಬೇಕು ಅಲ್ಲ ಲೈಫ್ ಆಯಿತು. Hey guys, welcome to days 2 of building a real-time chat app. Today we're going to look at Node.js and SocketIO. Let me change to my screen and okay. Good evening. Hi Pratit. Hi Teja. Hi Maria. Sure Pratit. We'll get in touch with you with help you with that add-ins. No problem. So let's just wait a couple more minutes, see if more people gonna join us, and we'll get started. I do recommend that you join from the app.duolearn.tech, where you can also watch the same stream, same chat. It's basically embedded, and the major reason would be that you can attend the quizzes there, which will be based on what we're going to learn, and scoring the highest points would get you a Duolearn kit. That's the reason. Now, just a couple more minutes, we'll wait and we'll get started. Till then, if you guys have any questions regarding yesterday's session, do ask me right now or in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer that. Good evening, Ishwari. All right, so no questions it seems. Let's get started. So I'm gonna show you what we're going to learn today. So this is the little agenda we have for today. So first we will look into what and why of Node.js. Why do we need it? Why do we have it? And what exactly is Node.js? These are important stuff to know. Then we'll dig little into basics of Node.js. We'll learn a little bit about how it works, and we will try to set up a simple HTTP server with Node.js. And then we will learn what WebSockets are and how they are used. Then we'll dig into what SocketIO is. So that is the core technology that we're actually going to use to build our apps. And at the end, we will build a couple of really simple real-time apps with SocketIO to just get our heads wrapped around this concept of WebSockets and how they interact with the client and server, right? So that will be the goal of those two apps in SocketIO. Now, there was something I wanted to show yesterday which I couldn't. Let me show you that. So this basically demonstrates the power of JavaScript. Okay. Now, this is a really simple app that has 2 buttons and 1 question. This says, "Do you love me?" Now, this app is so powerful that it will make anybody you pose this question to say them yes. I'll show you why. So if I try to click on no, you can see it's kind of going away, right? It's impossible to click on the no button. So ultimately, they'll have to click on yes, which is what we want, right? So tell me if there's any other programming language that can get you what you want like this, right? So that's how powerful JavaScript is. So yeah, that was the little pep talk about how powerful JavaScript was. You can also, I hosted this HTML. You can access that as well. I will give you, where is it? In case you're interested in sharing with someone, I'm going to drop this in the chat. Yeah. Okay, that was that. Now let's go back to learning about Node.js, right? That's why we're here. Cool. So I hope nobody has any questions with yesterday's session. So that's cool. That means you have understood everything with JavaScript that you need to know to continue with this session. Okay. And I also hope that you're watching it from the platform. Yeah. Okay. Now let's get into it, right? Let's just clear up what exactly Node.js is. So Node.js is called a runtime environment, right? That's what anybody you ask, they're going to tell you that it is a runtime environment. Now, what does that actually mean? So a runtime environment is basically any environment where you run a program. That's basically it, right? So such as if you're running the JavaScript in browser, you see that the environment that it's being run in is the JavaScript, the browser's JavaScript engine. So all of these engines also have names. So all the browsers have their own JavaScript engine, such as Chrome has V8, and I think Internet Explorer has something called Spider Monkey, so on. So people have things like that. Is it like IDE? Not really. IDEs allow you to yeah, it's possible that an IDE can also be like a runtime environment if it's configured like that, but usually not. They utilize a runtime environment behind the scenes. Now let's get more into it. So people often get confused or tell that Node.js is actually a framework or another language itself. So it's neither of them. So just an environment that allows you to run JavaScript, right? So when JavaScript was created, it was only intended to work inside the browsers, right? The intention was, or they did not foresee that even they could run it outside the browsers. Then in somewhere around 2010 or 9, Node.js was introduced, which allowed people to write backend in JavaScript, right? They would be able to do a lot of backend stuff with JavaScript. Now, why was Node.js invented, right? That's a interesting question you should know. Before we get into that, let's just clear that why it's not a framework. So in order for us to declare that it is not a framework, let's try to understand what a framework is, right? So a framework essentially is a bunch of code that is given to you, on which that gives you a head start, right, to build your application. A simple analogy is, say you want to build a house, and in order to build a house you would need a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of materials you need, a lot of things you need from different places, a lot of labor you need to get done. So instead of that, you could also hire someone like a contractor or some company who can give you all of those things assembled, and then you can build your house. It's exactly like that. So framework give you tools that you can use directly to build an app or a server, something like that. However, Node.js does not do that. It gives you low-level APIs to interact with your operating system, right? And what do I mean by low-level APIs? So these are like APIs that interact in a way directly with your system, right? It could be your hardware, it could be your memory, which again is hardware, or your network interface. Basically, all of those things is allowed inside Node.js, right? So if we take a look at the Node.js website, which is nodejs.org, I also recommend that if you haven't yet, download Node.js and get it installed on your computer. I'd suggest the LTS version, which means long-term support. This means that this specific version will be maintained for a longer time and will not have any breaking changes. So do install that. All right, now let's go ahead to the docs. Okay, so let's see 16, and yeah, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so that you can see what stuff we have here. So on the left sidebar here, which scrolls, you can see all of these things, right? These are all libraries that Node.js provide for you to utilize, you know. So for example, there is let's say something called crypto. This allows you to do cryptographic stuff such as hashing, encoding, decoding, signing. So if you have ever studied crypto in your college or something, cryptography, that's basically those things you can use or work on with this crypto package. So these are all inbuilt in Node.js for us to use directly. All right. So similarly, there are a bunch of stuff that you can use to build an application. So again, these are not stuff that give you a head start in building. These are like building blocks that you get. Similarly, how in Java or C++ you get these libraries, stdioh or something like that. You can compare these to them, which then means it's not a framework. It's just functionalities provided. Okay. Thanks, Abhishek. All right. So where were we? So we saw what are the things Node.js allows us to do and stuff. Now let's get back to learning why it's not a language, right? So it's not a language simply because it doesn't have its own standards, right? It only allows us to use or write JavaScript outside the browser. Now, it uses something called JavaScript engine like a V8, and in combination with a package called libuv. Now, what you write in JavaScript kind of gets bridged into some C++ packages. So these packages are actually responsible to doing all the crypto OS and stuff. Okay. So now we covered like what Node.js is and a little bit about its offerings and what exactly it is. Now let's understand why did we get Node.js at all, because at that time when Node.js was created, we know that there are already bunch of things that were available through which you can build your software or your backend services. But what Ryan Dahl, who is the creator of Node.js, criticized that the web servers at the time were not able to handle a large number of concurrent users. And when I say large, I do not just mean 10 or in thousands, I mean in tens of thousands, right? The servers at that time were not able to handle that kind of load. So the reason was because most of those servers were blocking, right? And what I mean by blocking is, let's say there is a file system that the server has to access, and as a browser you request it. So while it's fetching that, the web server is likely to not accept other requests until it is processed that request. What Node.js allows us to do is it processes the request, it queues it in its own event loop, and then processes the next request coming in. So let's say this is your web server. This is your server, and it's connected to a database. Okay. And this is the client, or like a browser, and you say, hey, I want this file. Let's say I want this file named movie.mp4. Okay. And you kind of have to fetch the details about this movie. Okay. Let's say this total fetching time is around 500 milliseconds. In this 500 milliseconds, this process, the server getting this information from database, it could be around 450 milliseconds. Okay. And the rest of the 50 milliseconds is about the server maybe parsing it or doing other stuff that it has to do before it is sent. Okay. Yeah, I just moved my camera to this side. Okay. So, in this 450 milliseconds, the server will not the server will block the requests. that's basically allowing you to, a lot of requests being stalled. What JavaScript does is, in the 450 seconds that it's about to fetch it, it's going to process the incoming requests. So that's how it can handle so many concurrent requests at the same time. So a few things that we will need to clear here is that this kind of gives an illusion that JavaScript could be working like a multi-threaded language here, right? But in reality, it's not. So it's just it's just handling those requests in a smart way to, to give us the feeling that it's actually processing all the requests, and it is actually processing those requests. It will just not block your request just because it's doing an IO operation. So anything the server does outside its capabilities, so let's say this is our JavaScript server, and this is kind of outside its territory, right? This database is not something that's part of the language. These are called IO operations, right? And these IO operations will not interfere with incoming requests. So that's basically how it works. So that is why Node.js was kind of introduced, but it used JavaScript to achieve this. Iranda created something called event loop, in which he would send all these callback functions, right? Those are the stuff that will get executed once DB fetching or some information fetching is done. And that's how it handles all of these concurrent requests. Okay, now that's over. Now let's discuss a little bit about the advantages of using Node.js. The first and foremost advantage is that it's written in JavaScript, right? That allows us to use a single language to write all the front end, all the back end in single language. The inception of Node.js gave web developers the power to create an entire application by just knowing one single programming language. Now that's the coolest part about it. So the other things are like, it's also easy to learn. Even if you do not know JavaScript, it's easy to understand it, and the concepts are on Node.js is also quite fairly simple to get started with. Then there are other reasons, such as it's easy to do prototyping and stuff. And so what can you build with Node.js? Let's also think about that. So you can use Node.js to build a lot of things. Just for example, you can build a data streaming platform where you stream a bunch of data from different sources to a single source. You can build something like that. And you can also build real-time stuff like a chat, like a group chat, or a bunch of other monitoring tools, which will kind of be building also. And then you can also build, the backend for most of the applications, such as say you have social media front end and stuff. You can build the entire backend for it in your Node.js APIs and stuff. You can build REST APIs, all of that things in Node.js. Basically, you can do, so it's a general purpose thing. You can almost do anything in it. No stuff. Okay. Now let me see what we have next. Okay. I hope that you have Node.js installed. It's time to do some hands-on now. So I'm going to pull up my terminal. So make sure that you have Node.js installed by checking node-v. That should give you the version you have. Okay, I'm going to switch. So I have something called NVM that manages my Node versions and all. So I can have multiple Node versions in my system. So if you're interested in having that, you can also check that out. So I'll just switch over. You can just ignore this at all, this command for now. Okay, so let me check the Node version now. It's 18. It's okay, I have the latest LTS version. Now, once you have Node installed, you will also get something called NPM. Now, NPM is a register package manager. It manages all the JavaScript libraries that are open source, and you can install and publish stuff to there. So let's look at the web. Let's look at the website, npmjs.com. So here you can find millions of libraries that you can use in your Node.js. So this is again one of the advantages of Node.js, that it has a whole bunch of libraries that you can use to do almost anything. And so with these many libraries, you can already guess that it also has a pretty big community. If you ever stuck, if you're ever trying to build something, you can almost find out that someone has tried to do the same. Okay. And you're likely to find resources for that as well. Okay, so let's try to see a package called WS. Now this is the package that we are going to use, that actually used widely to create something called WebSocket server. Now what exactly are WebSockets, right? So WebSockets are like a central piece for what we're going to do, and it's kind of important that we understand what it is also. So WebSockets is basically a protocol in which, HTTP request. So let's say when I open this page, a simple HTTP request was made to this path, right? And I got this document, and that's it. The request ended. However, with WebSockets, once you initiate a connection with a server which has a WebSocket facility, it's going to do a handshake. It's going to do something called a handshake and see if it can connect with you on a WebSocket level, right? If it can upgrade your HTTP to WebSocket support. Once that is done, that HTTP request has become sort of like a two-way road, or you can also call it bidirectional, which means the client and the server can communicate without having the request to close. So traditionally speaking, everything I do in this website, so once I search this, a request was made to NPM's backend to fetch these packages, and after that the request was closed. And if I want to make another search, I'll have to enter again, and another request would be made. Now this would be a bad design when you have to build something real time, right? So if you're building a chat app, you'd have to constantly ping your server for checking for new messages and getting new messages and all that. So WebSockets, you'd only have to connect once, and then go back and forth with your messages. So that's a little bit about WebSocket. So I'm going to show you how you can get started with creating a node project. So okay, I'm gonna create a directory called live. Inside that, okay, so this is my base directory for this project, for the projects for this workshop. In here I'm going to create a project, let's say node demo. What we'll do is, let's go inside that folder, node demo, and we have to do something called npm init. So this command will tell you that you're about to initialize a node project here. So let's click on init. It's going to ask us the name of the package. So I'll just say demo for now. Version, description, let's just not have it at all. Entry point, which means what is going to be the file that will be the entry point of your project, which is this file that has all the files combined, runs your application. So let's just be index.js. We don't have a test command. We don't have a git repo. Keywords, no. Author, no. So these are all things not required by default. So you can also like just enter, or you can also do npm init y, which will initiate the repository quickly in one command. Now once you do that, you get this file called package.json. Now let's explore this inside Visual Studio Code. If you do not have Visual Studio Code, you can use any text editor you want, or you can also like later install it as well. Okay, I'm just gonna get the video capture a little bit away so that the code is properly visible. Yeah, this should do. Cool. So let me maximize it a little bit. Okay, so let's see what we have in package.json. So this is kind of the stuff it asked us while initializing the project, right? It asked us the name, it asked us the version and all. So that's what this also has. This package.json is also going to include all the dependencies we install from NPM registry, right? So all of these great people who contribute, open source the libraries, we can download, install them and use them to build what we want. Okay. So I hope this makes it visible. And I'm just gonna pause for a second and see if you guys are okay with what has been, what we have just discussed, and if you do not have any questions. All right. It's also going to be now a time for quiz. I'm going to okay, let's see all the quizzes we have. All right, so here's the quiz. You have 2 questions. Who created Node.js and what is Node.js? Do answer them, and the quiz will deactivate into a couple of minutes. I hope you are watching this from the platform. And yeah, please do not comment the answers. Yeah, so first one is Randall. Let's see how people are doing. Okay, we have Teja again at the top, Rajnish 20, Priyanka 20. Good guys, good going. What was the terminal I used before VS Code? This is item2 and Z shell. It has a theme. I don't know the theme name. It's been some time. So this is Z shell basically. Yes, the second question answer is runtime environment. Correct. All right, seems like you guys are done. I'm going to disable the quiz now. Okay, cool. Oh, there's a comment. Quiz not coming. I just disabled it. Would you like to do it again? Okay. So you can attend the quiz now in case you missed it. Okay, I'll keep it open for a while. Let's get back to this. Now, how can we use from one of these million libraries in our own project? So what you have to do is do npm install and the package name. So this is how it's going to look. So you can also open up your terminal inside VS Code like this. let's see, let's install something called, and you can also use I for the short term, short form, npm I, let's just say chalk. I think there's a package called chalk that lets us do something like CLI stuff. Let me check. Yeah, so you can like kind of print stuff inside the terminal with like colors and things. So it's a simple thing you can use to build your CLIs where you want to kind of highlight some stuff and when printing into the console. Okay, so let's see how we can use this. I'm gonna install this chalk. It's installed, and if you check the package JSON now, you will see inside the dependencies object we have chalk, and this is the version for it. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll create a new file, index.js. This is the entry point of our file, and I'm going to import that library like this. Chalk equals to require chalk, the exact name what you installed, like this. So this is now downloaded inside our node modules. So you see we have chalk here, and all the dependencies or the code that it has will also, you can see that. So that's chalk installed in our node modules from npm registry. That's how you can get modules. Okay, now we have this. Now let's see the documentation and see how the things we can do. So they take the console log, and this is how they're doing it. So I'm just gonna copy this, see if this works. Okay, so just say hello Duolearn. Okay, now how are we going to run this, right? We have the JavaScript file, we have a Node.js modules installed. How are we going to run it? So let's go back to the terminal, and hopefully you have again installed the Node software. So you say node and you do index.js. Go ahead. Oh, okay. So I think this is because this kind of require might not work. Let's see if they have documentation for this. I think this might be just work in the new version. Not sure. Let's see. Okay, let's. Alright, we'll come back to this later, or maybe not. This is not the focus, however. So I'll show you how you can use the libraries. One of those we saw in the Node.js docs. Okay, and for the libraries you saw in the Node.js docs, you do not have to install them. They are like bundled with your Node runtime itself. So you can directly do const fs require fs. Now fs is a package that allows you to access file systems in your thing. Okay, so let's say I have a file inside in here. Let's say it's readme.md, and I have hello in it. Let's see if we can access the content of this file inside our node file, right? No node script. Okay, so you do nfs read file sync, and you give the path to the file. So it will be readme.md, should work, and you have to give the encoding of the file, which will be UTF-8. Now let's see if that works. Okay, I think it was read. So once it's read, you can store the content in a variable. I'll just call it readme content. and I'm going to log it. Let's see. You now see that the content was successfully accessed and it was logged. Now, if you noticed here, there was another method in the FS that was just a read file. Now, read file and read file sync are a bit different. When you use sync, you're actually blocking the control, right? What that means is when this line is being run, the next line will not execute it until the first line is run. But if you use just read file, it means that this will get executed kind of like after all the synchronous calls are done, and then the read file content is kind of given. I'll show you what I mean. So let's say I'll remove this, same file name, and then you have the callback. Okay, now callbacks are basically functions that are called when this method is executed, this action is executed successfully. So that's the thing with these non-blocking operations, right? These IO operations will get executed once the other stuff are executed. So I'll show you. So this function gives you error and a response, that's our data. And yeah, this must have not been shown earlier. This is a arrow function in case, so we have not seen this before, so I'll just write function here, read file, that's going to take an error and data, and it's going to console log the data. And I'll pass this function to read file as the second argument. This means once the read file is read, once the readme file is read, it will call this function with these two arguments. It's going to pass error and data to this function, and then this function can do whatever we want it to do. Okay, now let's see if this also works. See, we got the buffer, probably because we did not specify the content or the encoding. All right, so there could be a way we can do the string method and it should work. Alright, let's take a look at the docs. fs file system, and we were trying to do read file. Okay, and tense promise is buffer object. Okay, so instead of the file name, we can also pass the an object that tells them what the encoding is. So these don't look like the options. Let's see. So encoding and signal. Let's take a look at other methods we have. We also have a read. Okay, cool. So let's explore more modules we have. Let's take a look at something called HTTP. So we're gonna use this one to build our HTTP server in Node.js. So I'm not so sure why this is not loading the content. All right. Okay, now let's move on from this. We will now try to create a HTTP server, which is basically going to say send a HTTP file or something. Okay, I'm checking the comments just in case if there's any. There's a bug with the quiz. Sure, I will get in touch with you. We can maybe see what the bug is. And yeah, any questions until this point, please feel free to ask. Okay, so what we're gonna do now is create an HTTP server which is going to send, say, a HTTP file. Okay, and now we're also going to create a simple SocketIO app as well. All right, so let's dig into it. So I'm going to create a folder called public. This public folder is the one that's going to have things like that the user actually sees, right? What they like, the HTML files and stuff. So I'm going to create one file, index.html. Okay, so we have this. I'm just going to say so this gives us a boilerplate for HTML. I'm going to put in the body just h1 real-time memory monitor. So what we're going to build is we're going to show in the web app what the exact memory usage of this machine is in real time. Okay, so let's see if we can serve this. In order to serve that, we have to create a HTTP server and open up a port. Basically, a network port is something that you can open in your in any almost all operating systems, and you can serve your application or interact with your applications over a port. So we're going to do something like that. We're going to create a HTTP server and open it on a port. I see this got little, yeah. Okay, so we have the HTTP here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a server which says HTTP create server, and the create server will take a function that it's going to call whenever a HTTP request is made to the server. So I'll say function request and response. Okay, so the request is an object that will have all the information about the request that is made, like where it's being made from, what's the time, what's the browser type, or what is the user trying to request, or what is the path they are trying to request, all of that. So let me just log the response here, res or request, to see what the user actually requesting is, right? So once you have kind of created a server like this, it's a very simple server, and you have to also end the response. So res.end. So you remember how I told that HTTP requests kind of end when the things they are supposed to do are done. So this is basically it. You're basically ending the response once we have console logged. We're not giving the client or the person who's requesting any further information. So this was demo to see what the request object has. So let's see, server, then you say listen, you can give the port number. So I'm going to give 5000, and let's run it. Node index.js. Okay, I think the server is running. So once you have this, go ahead and check localhost 5000 and see if you got a response logged. As you can see here, we have a bunch of stuff that is being sent in the request. So all of this information is sent from the browser to our server about the request. So you can see what the host is and what is the URL we are trying to request, what's the method, right? So I hope you know that the get method is a HTTP verb. It kind of tells us what kind of HTTP requester we are making, and based on that method, the server can do multiple stuff or different kind of stuff based on the method. We will not dig deeper into the REST API information or all of that stuff. This will be just strictly setting up a HTTP server and about SocketIO. So you might have noticed we kind of have to kill the server and restart it. So let's not do that. So we can listen to the file changes and restart it whenever we make a file change. In order to do that, this is a new feature in Node. You can do node -- watch and the file name. So every time you make changes to the file, it's going to restart it. So let's say I'm just gonna press space and save. You see it says restarting. So that's how the node watch works. All right. So now let's try to send this index.html file as let's send this file, index.html file, whenever they access our website, right? This is how it's going to look. We'll say fs. I will first have to import fs because we are accessing the file system. Fs require fs. So we'll say fs read file, and it's going to be can use directory name. So this means the current directory, so which is this, and we can do like this. In the current directory, go to the public folder, and in that folder send the index.html file. We're going to specify a callback. It's going to be error and data, and in here we will write the response. Okay, we'll say res write head, and write head means what is the status code you want to give. So 200 means it's a successful request. And what do we want to send in the end? In the res end method, you can specify if there's something you want to send. So we want to send the data. Okay, so I think it has restarted. Let me refresh this, and yeah, you can see that the HTML is now kind of being seen here. It's real-time memory monitor. Good. So we have the server set up. Now what we're gonna do is start implementing SocketIO. Now let's take a look at SocketIO's documentation. So it says it's enables low latency, bidirectional and event based communications between a client and server. So we want JavaScript, Node.js. We have to install the server SocketIO like this. So copy this and go to here and stop this and install SocketIO. Okay, the SocketIO is installed. How you have to do after that is you have to create a SocketIO object or instance and attach it to our server. So that will basically add a route. I think it's /SocketIO, where all of our asynchronous bidirectional communication is going to happen. Yeah, so yeah, Pawan's right. Express uses HTTP module. If you've taken a look at Express's thing, all of the code that you write, all the handlers you write in the Express, they all kind of get passed down to this single callback function. And from here, based on the request URL and the method, Express is going to call the methods you define it to call. So we're just taking a look at just using the bare minimum stuff here. Okay, now that's there. So okay, SocketIO is installed. Now let's like initialize SocketIO. All right, so I'm going to import the package SocketIO equals require socket.io. Okay, once we have it installed, what next you want to do is you want to attach the SocketIO to our server, right? So you have to create an IO instance or SocketIO instance. This is how you can do it. Const IO equals I think you can just directly call like SocketIO, and you have to pass in the HTTP server you want it to listen to on. So our server is under the variable server. I'll just pass it like this. And that should be it. Our app should now have SocketIO setup. Okay. Now the way we can verify it is we can't verify it right at the moment. So once we have the server, we want to connect it to this server from our front end. So what we'll do for that is, so in every server that installs SocketIO, the SocketIO is going to expose a single file which you can use, which will be the client library that you can use in your front end. Okay, so this is how you can access it. It's going to be, I'm going to import it over here, just about the body script source. So the source for the client library is going to be in SocketIO socket.io.js. So I think that's it, and then we have to connect to our socket server. How are we going to do that? So I'm going to have another script file here which is going to connect. So I'll say const socket is going to be, so since we have this script injected, we will now have access to an object called IO on the window. So you can, anything that's attached to the window, you can directly call them like this or access them IO, and you're gonna have to give the location of your socket server. In our case, it's HTTP localhost 5000. So it will now connect to the our socket server. Okay. All right, so let's start the app. make sure no errors are there, and I'm going to open up the inspect network calls and refresh. See these API calls. These API calls represent or basically tells us that our SocketIO is kind of now integrated. So these are made, you can see, to slash SocketIO, and you will think that we have not implemented that, but since we attached SocketIO to our server, it now has slash SocketIO where a real-time communication can happen. Okay. So initially it does transport of polling, and later on when we initiate the communication, it's going to upgrade to WebSocket. So I'll show that in a moment. And yeah, now how SocketIO works is it's very event based, right? So there could be events like a user joining, user logging out. So these are the events that you can have your logic run or your business things, business logic run on. And yeah, so what you can do is there is in the IO, you can listen to whenever someone joins your socket server. Okay, so the way you can do that is, let's say you do IO, there's a method called on. Now you might remember from the DOM class how we listen to listen events like mouse click or submit or on click. You can also listen to IO events with the IO object, okay, on specific events. So you can either create these events yourself, event names, or you can also use the predefined events. So one of the predefined events is connection. So this means that anytime a client is connected to our connection, we can execute this function. We want it to execute this function basically. So it will be like function, and it's gonna pass in the socket. Okay, I'm gonna call it sock. And on connection, let's just log what the socket object has. Let's start the node server again, but with watch. Okay, yeah, you can see now the connection. These are the things we have on socket. See socket. Oh wait, I think this is coming from our. No, this is from our socket. So an interesting thing in here is there would be an ID for this socket as well. An ID or some specifier that will uniquely identify this connection. We're going to use this in the further class, and how we can build, real-time one-to-one chat with this. Okay, this, I hope no questions till now. Oh, this is now still active. I'm going to activate the next quiz. Quiz 3 coming up. Yeah, so this is based on a little bit about what you learned on how callbacks are executed. So let me see how many people can get this right. Okay. Meanwhile, I'm gonna just plug in my charger to the laptop. All right, I am back. Charges plugged in. It's now charging. Yeah, awesome. So, okay, let me explain the question. I'll try to answer it for you. Just a sec. Okay, so what will be logged first? So this line reads the file and then has a callback that logs file read. After this statement, you have another console log that says logger. So the way the Node.js is going to work is it's first going to obviously run this command, and then this callback will be called later once the file is read. And while this happens, it's going to go to the next line and console log the logger. So the first thing it's going to log is the logger. Hope that clears that up. Okay, let's end the quiz and get back what we were doing. So cool, we are now able to do this. Like we're able to see that, hey, we're receiving a connection here, and we can now say that, hey, you're we can give an acknowledgement, right? Hey, you're connected, something like that. So let me show you how you can do that. Too bright. Okay, so I told you that socket is very event driven, or it basically is event driven. So any communication you have to do with your client, or the client to the server to the client, it has to happen on an event basis. So on connection, that okay, you got to know that client got connected, and then you logged this. So what you can also do is you can emit an event, right, and tell that, okay, hey, you are committed, you are connected. So I'll say socket emit, I'll say connected. And what do you want to emit? So you can give anything over here that will be sent to your client. So I will say message hello. Okay, so what this basically means is, for every socket connection, you're going to emit an event connected with this JSON object. Okay, that again means that any client that connects will receive an event called connected, okay, which they can listen to now. Now let's see how we can listen to it on the front end and interpret the message. So you can do socket.listen, socket.on to listen for particular events. So what is the event we are firing here? Connected, right? So let's listen to connected, and we can then pass a function to this, which says which has the data. The data is going to be what we send over here. This object is going to be the data. So let's console log the data. Set log. I'm just going to refresh it. Yep, you can see the message is hello. So that happened in real time, but doesn't really have it's not really special, right? So let's do something. What we'll do is every second I'm going to tell the client, hey, this machine has this much memory usage happened. Okay, so to do that, let's see if we have something for that. So under OS, there are two specific methods that I'm interested in right now. One is free mem, and then total mem. These both methods give us a number that tells us how many memory that the host has and how much memory is consumed from free mem. So let me console log that first. So first we have to import the OS library. And yeah, let's just console log os.freemem. So this is a method, so I have to like call these parentheses and then total mem parentheses. Let's see. Now you can see that the used free memory and total memories are printed in bytes. You can see that it says it is of bytes somewhere. I read that. Okay, so these are bytes basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell the client, hey, this is how much the usage is happening in percentage. Okay. Now to do that, what I'll do is on connection, I'm going to set a timeout interval. Okay, so what is this? If you're seeing this for the first time, set interval is a function that's available both in Node.js and in browsers. It basically will run a function that you pass on every time interval of this. So 1000 milliseconds means 1 second. For every 1 second, it's going to run this function. And what I want to do this is I want to get the memory used. Memory used would be os.freemem. No, it's available memory, right? And I want another variable in which I'm going to show the total memory. And I'll calculate a percentage, which is going to be available mem divided by total mem into 100. And I'm going to send this percent to the client. Okay, so I'll do socket.emit. Let's say memory update. I'll call this even memory update, and I'm going to send the percentage like this. Now the client has to listen for this event to get the percentage of the memory used in the host. Okay, so I'll remove this connected. We don't need that. Okay, so just to summarize, what we're doing is on every connection we're going to have an interval that's going to emit this event with the percent of the memory used. Okay, and we're going to calculate that every single second and send it to the client. The client has to listen to this event and show it to the user. So I'm going to do this now. So socket on memory update, it's going to have the data.percent in it. Okay, and inside h1 I'm going to have a span, and that says as an ID of say memory usage. Now we learned that we can change the content or the text inside an element in the DOM class. So let's do that. So I'm going to get the element by ID memory usage. I'm going to set the inner text to what we get in data.percent. So gonna add the percentage sign, so you know it's obvious. Okay, let's save both of them, and we'll have to reload the front end. Yep, so you can see we in real time we're seeing how much memory is available in my system. So you can see it's less than 1% memory is there. You can remove the console log over here, and let's also like it's too lengthy, right? Let's also like I think we can do percent dot to fixed will only send two decimals. Okay, now that's pretty good. So there you guys, we just build our first real-time app. So I'm going to, let's build one more where two clients can actually like kind of interact. Now before we move on to the next one, we have one more quiz. Okay, I see some questions. I'm gonna answer them now. Yeah, so in your account it shows 50, but in leaderboard 20. So this leaderboard is only for today. So only for today's session. The thing you see in your account is the total stars or total points you have earned throughout the Duolearn platform. Okay, so I hope that answers your question. We're soon gonna add an option to see how much you scored in this workshop, not just the session soon. Okay, cool. Let's get the next quiz up. Okay, the question is, which of this is not a characteristic of WebSocket connection? Is it not always open, or is it not bidirectional, or does it not require client initiation to receive a message, or is it half duplex? I'll let you guys answer this one. So I see that Teja is still at the top. Then we have Rajneesh. Then we have Dhruval Modi at third, or second position. Yeah. Counting from 0. All right. All right, Tejas, I think got the answer right. Okay, so let me explain the answer. So the WebSocket connection is generally always open as long as the client doesn't go offline, and it is bidirectional because the client and server can communicate with each other both ways on a single line or on a single kind of request. And it also does not require a client initiation to receive a message. So you saw that in here we are emitting this event even though the client has not exactly asked for it. So you can still send them these events, this data even without them asking them. Then you have half duplex. Half duplex is nothing but sort of like it's opposite to bidirectional, where only you get the request and you get the response and then it's over. That's basically what that is. All right, now let's close this quiz. Okay, still have Teja at the top. Awesome. Okay, so now this is done. I'm going to modify this thing a little bit so it kind of looks somewhat more of a thing that two people can use, right? They can maybe communicate together or post some messages. It's not going to be our end application, but it's going to be a little bit of that so that we understand wrap around the concept of sockets. So we will not be needing this. Okay, so what I'll do is we're going to have uh, in input and all the messages that have been sent. And every time someone who has joined sends a message, the app is going to be updated with that. And so let's build a really simple UI for that. And yeah, let's get on to it. So it's no longer real-time thing. Let's just call it simple forum, right? And it's going to have an input. Let's give it an ID so we can access the value later. Call it message, and a button with an ID send that says send. Okay, that's all there is. Forum and send. And just below that we're going to have a div. It's going to let's give this a class of messages, message input. Okay, and let's just have one message here, hello. Let's see this. Okay, if we have multiple messages, it's going to look like this. Cool. So what we want to do is whenever we hit send, we want it to come just after the hello. Okay, we'll implement that right now, and then we will do the real-time stuff. So I'm going to create a function that says add comment, okay, which is going to add the comment here, and it will appear. So it's going to receive the text that you want to add, and then we're going to inject this text into DOM as a paragraph tag. Okay, to do that, we first have to create an element. Okay, I'll just say, so it's a P element, so I'll just say para and document create element, and you can give the name of the element you want to create. So the element you want to create is P, right? P tag. And then if you remember that, now you can imagine the DOM as this big tree with all of these nodes, right? And with the DOM manipulation does not end with just changing the color or changing the styles and all of that stuff. You can also add your own nodes to that DOM model, and that's what we're going to do, right? We're going to create a paragraph tag and append to this div over here. Inside this div, we're going to add a child. Okay, so we have this. So next thing we need is a text node. This is going to be inside the paragraph. So in this paragraph, you see this hello. This is actually a text node. We need a paragraph node, inside that a text node. So I will create text node. It's going to be document create text node, and I think it needs to have what is the text you want to be there. So that's going to be the text that is sent, like this. And finally we have to append this text node to the paragraph, or basically insert text node inside para, like this. We're recreating this programmatically so that we can add dynamically the new text and stuff. So for that, I'll just have to get the messages div first. Oh, even before that, we have to add text node inside para, right? So we'll say para append child text node. So now we've successfully created something like this. Okay, now we have to inject it into the messages div. Let's do that. First, let me get the messages div document dot get element by id messages, and we'll do similarly message div append child text node. Okay, this is all done. Now we have to actually call this comment whenever this button is clicked. Let's do that. So we'll do document get element by id. We'll get the button send we'll add the event listener on click, similarly how we did in previous class. Add event listener. I think it's just click, right? Okay. What we want to do is we want to perform add comment. Okay, since we're directly assigning it here, we're not passing the text, right? So we can just get the text from the input itself. So document get element by ID. It's going to be this message input, its value, whatever the value that's been typed into it. And then I'm going to create a text node, paragraph node, insert text node inside the paragraph node, and then insert paragraph node inside the dev child. So it should work. Let's see how it goes. Let's see on is this being called. Okay, and we're missing create text node append child. Let's check the text node. Let's console of para here, what we are getting. Okay, we have this. Let's log messages div. I think there's probably an error somewhere. Get element by ID messages. Append child. Oh, we should be appending para. Let's see if that works. Append child cannot read properties of null reading append child. So I think it's not able to get this element with messages ID for some reason. The ID is right. Oh, my bad. It's class. Did anybody notice that? Okay. Let's see now. Okay, refresh. Okay, you can see that we're able to add this. What we want to do is, when I add this, I want all of the online users to see that as well. So let's see how we can do it. Instead of sending it to there, I wanted to send it to the server, right? To the server, so that from the server we can emit to all the clients, and then the clients can add it to their DOM. So that's how it's going to work. Let's illustrate. So this is our socket server, and we have, let's say, a bunch of clients. Okay. and this guy sends a message, and we want our socket server to send the message to all the other clients. Okay, like so. So that then they can all update their UI. It's basically what we want to do. So let's implement that. Okay, so in order to do that, what we have to do is, instead of appending to over there, we want to send it to the client, the server. So I'll create a function. I'll call it send command, and it's gonna be assigned to event listener. What it will do is it will call the socket and it will say, hey, emit this event called new message, and what you're gonna have is a message. The message is going to be what the value is in the input. So it will be message input value like this. Now let's see if we can actually, if we're able to receive this in the server. So we'll have to listen to that. Socket on new message data log data. Okay, refresh. Did I not save index.html? Okay. Yeah, so you can see our server received the message here. Now what I want is, once it's received it, I want the server to again emit an event that says, hey, you have a new message, do update your UI now. So I'll say socket.emit update messages. So let's call this add message, and new message would be to all the clients. So it will just send the data itself. Now we have to listen to new message in when we are connected here, or we can do this over here. Socket on new message. We're going to get the data. Function data, and let's actually add this instead of this. You can use this same function over here. Add command data dot I think it's data dot message, right? Okay. Let's see if it works. Okay, not sure it's working yet, right? Because it's just one client. I'm gonna open another window. Keep them opened one by. Okay, it's 5,000, right? Okay, so let's refresh them. I'm gonna send hi over here. So it's not, was only added to this one, I think. Yeah, so this would only emit to this socket. We'll have to, I think, do IO emit. Let's see. Yeah, so when you do socket emit, you're only sending to that particular connection, I suppose. So, and when you use IO, then you can connect, send to all the the clients that are connected. So you can now see that whatever message I send over here kind of also appearing over here. I say Duolearn over here, I should be able to see it here too. I'll say Node.js here. I'll be able to see it too. So that was two little applications so that we can understand how SocketIO works, and I hope that was easy to follow. And if you have any questions to ask me right now, or you can also ping us on Discord. But yeah, I think we have one quiz left. Let's finish that up. Okay, that was all quiz. This is a blank one. Okay, guys, any questions? Let's take them. Okay, so I'll explain how the tomorrow's application is going to look like before we end the class. So it's going to look something like this. Okay, you have your app, and in here you're going to have the list of online users over here. Okay, so if 3 people are online, you'll be able to see them over here, like it will be their name or username or something. And if you click on them, you'll be able to open a chat, and you'll be able to communicate with them in like a one-on-one chat. And this is going to be sort of end-to-end in a way, kind of like we will not be storing any messages in the server. It kind of like how WhatsApp works in a way, like all the messages WhatsApp send are kind of stored in your local device, right? So all the messages will be stored in browser's memory, and if you refresh, it will be all gone. So it's kind of like I guess Snapchat in a way, that particular thing. Yeah. So yeah, but you'll be able to talk to any online users. We'll be building it using another concept in SocketIO called rooms. So that will be useful to build channels in such a way that only 2 of people can communicate with each other or something like that. So that's the SocketIO feature we're going to use. And let's take a look at the leaderboard. Tejas at the top. We have Rajneesh. Okay. Okay, so it's time for the attendance. I'm going to share it now. Yes, it will be web. So this is the attendance link. I'm gonna pin this as well. And this is the QR. can we also use it for app? You can. Basically, there will be libraries which you can use to connect to WebSocket servers. So what we built is SocketIO. Under the hood, it uses a protocol called WebSocket, right? Which is again on the same level as HTTP. So if you're able to make HTTP request, should be able to sort of also do WebSocket connections. There should be libraries for any mobile app you're trying to build, like React Native or Flutter. I suppose there would be packages for to that. But you can also build this in such a way that it behaves properly in mobile. It's responsive and all. Then what you can do is you can use some library to convert that into an APK or even an iOS thing. So it's basically going to package your code into a little browser and ship it like an APK. So to do that, you can take a look at capacitor. I've used this one once where I converted similar kind of chat app into mobile app. So you'll be able to do that with this. It's fairly simple to use. Yeah. Let's see who scored highest in the last session. So if I go to the previous session, this yesterday, oh, this is today's. Okay. Okay, still Teja, I think you would be in the top 1 at the moment. Let's see if you keep that up in the next session, then we'll give you a kit. Okay, so guys, that's it for today. I will see you tomorrow. I'm gonna keep open this for a while. So if you have come late or something, you can scan this and mark your attendance. Thank you everyone. See you tomorrow. Bye.